Good morning, everyone. I would like to begin by acknowledging that this meeting is being held on an unceded Anishinaabe-Algonquin territory. The peoples of the Anishinaabe-Algonquin Nation have lived on this territory for millennia. Their culture and presence have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. I'd like to ask Kelly to do roll call, please.
Counselor Brown,
Here.
Counselor Kitts, Counselor Luloff,
Good morning.
Vice Chair Kelly,
Present.
Chair Drews, you have quorum.
Thank you, and I will note that Councillor Kidd sent her regrets today. I'm hoping that everyone spent a great summer and everybody had an amazing weather to enjoy your vacations and back to work. As usual, September is very busy for us, and I know I'm looking forward to it. Most parents also send their kids to school, so that's also another challenges, but I'm hoping all summer and everything went great this year. I also remind everyone that it's a fair season, so we're gonna have Richmond Fair and Carp Fair and then Metcalf Fair. I can't say which one the best. I'm hoping that you can visit them all and judge for yourself. I gotta be very neutral on that. But saying that, and thank you very much for being here this morning and our first ERAC meeting coming back in September. So this is a public meeting to consider the proposed comprehensive official plan and zoning bylaw amendments listed as items 4.2 4.4 and 5.1 on today's agenda. For the items just mentioned, only those specifically identified in the Planning Act who make oral submissions today or written submissions before the amendments are adopted may appeal the matter to the Ontario Land Tribunal. In addition, the applicant may appeal the matter to the Ontario Land Tribunal if Council does not adopt an amendment within 90 days of the application for a zoning bylaw amendment and 120 days for an official plan amendment. To submit written comments on these amendments prior to their consideration by Council on September 18, 2024, please email or call the committee or Council coordinator. Thank you. Any declaration of interest? Seeing none, thank you. 3.1 ERAC minutes, 15, confirmation of minutes from Thursday, July 4, 2024.
Confirm.
Thank you. We're gonna go through the agenda and then we're gonna move some items and we're gonna hold some items. We got to have some presentation and we have some delegation. 4.1, Planning, Development and Building Services Department. We're gonna hold that. We have presentation. 4.2, it's a zoning bylaw amendment for 6109 and 6121 Fourth Line Road. There is no presentation, no delegation, no correspondence, and we have a Jamie Mallory, his planner, on that file. Seeing the recommendation that the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee recommend Council approve an amendment zoning bylaw 2008-250 for 6109 Fourth Line Road as shown in document 1 to prohibit residential development on the retained lands and serve the development and severe the development on a retained land. The severed residential parcel be rezoned to permit and reduce lot with and detail in document 2. Approve the consultation detail section as this report.
Carried.
Okay.
Carried.
Oh, sorry. I apologize. We have Jordan Jackson available from Novotech if there is a question. And if we carry that, you're okay. You don't speak for it or you're good? If you're scared. Okay. Carried.
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 Thank you. Similar 4.3 zoning bylaw amendment 3047 Moody Drive. And there is no presentation, no delegation, no correspondence. We have a staff, our planner, Jasdeep Brar on the file. We have the applicant, Steve Pence from Novotech. If there is any question or concern, and if this item carry, you're good, you're just here for a question. Thank you. A report recommendation that Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee recommend council approve an amendment to zoning bylaw 2008-250 for 3047 Moody Drive as shown in document 1 to prohibit residential development on the retained lands and to permit a reduced lot within 12-meter online surveyed lands as detailed in document 2, that the Agricultural Affairs Committee approve the consultation detail section of this report. Any question? Is that carried?
Carried.
Thank you very much, Steve. That's carried. 4.4 zoning bylaw amendment, 4380 Trail Road. We have Stefan Kukonan on a planner on the file. No presentation, no delegation, no correspondence. We have Tyler Yukobishak from Fotan. If there is question or concern, Tyler, just be ready for question. Report recommendation that the Agricultural Affairs Committee recommend council approve an amendment to zoning bylaw 2008-250 for 4380 Trail Road as shown in document 1 to permit a waste processing and transfer facility limited to the transfer and processing of inert soils as detailed in document 2. Approve the consultation detail section of this report. Question? Is that carried?
Carried.
Thank you very much. That's carried. And 4.5, we have rural community building grant. Those are great, always to come forward to the committee. We have Ryan Thompson. He's here if we have any question. The report recommendation that the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee approve the recommendation on the rural community building grants program application as detailed in document 1. Also, Kelly, you're good?
Good. I'll just take the opportunity to thank staff for working this through the system and obviously thank the dedicated people at the Canberra Community Association for the work that they do and the programming that they put on and the assistance that the city provides to enable that programming. So thanks to everybody involved and check out their corn roast coming up in 9 days.
Thank you. Is that carried?
Carried.
Thank you very much.
Carried.
We're gonna hold 4.6. We have a presentation. And we have a delegation. And we'll hold 5.1, the wetland omnibus official plan zoning bylaw. We also have presentation and we have a delegation. We also received 6.1 status update agriculture and rural affairs committee inquiry and motion. Is that received? Thank you. We're back to item 4.1. I see we have a presentation. We have a staff available. I think Alex LeBlanc, acting program manager, is here this morning with us. Thank you very much. And beside him is Mr. Derek Moody, director planning and services. So both of you, thank you very much for being here and we'll give you the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. And it doesn't feel like it was all that long ago that staff were before committee and council outlining a number of process-related changes as a result of provincial legislation, Bill 109, which resulted in dramatic changes to our process. And Bill 185, we're bringing forward some further changes as a result of a number of those changes in Bill 109 subsequently being reversed and or no longer applicable. Most significant for that is the inability for municipalities to require pre-application consultation, and also the elimination of the refunds for fees that were implemented in Bill 109. So staff, when we went through Bill 109, we did a lot of work to streamline our process, to sort of tighten things up as much as we could, where we could, for site plan applications and zoning bylaw amendments. We are committed to maintaining that level of intensity for review and keeping the streamlined approach that we have. But there are some changes, and Alex is going to walk through the presentation in a little bit more detail, but there are some changes to the way we are, when applications come in and how they're going to fall, whether it's on the clock or off the clock, with respect to that review. So I'll turn it over to Alex to walk us through the approach, and we're certainly happy to answer any questions at the end.
Thanks, Derek. And with that, perhaps we'll go to the first slide. So the first thing that we wanted to talk about is a little bit of the objective of the development review with the City of Ottawa. And it's really to foster collaboration between the city and applicants by identifying solutions to potential issues to get more development approved. It's also to ensure that council-approved policies, guidelines, and master plans are consistently reflected in quality applications. It's also to enable staff to process development applications efficiently and expeditiously, and also to provide flexibility to applicants to receive and to revise their proposal. So if we go to the next slide. So with Bill 185, in terms of the development review impacts, as Derek mentioned, there's two very big changes. So we're looking at no more mandatory pre-consultation and also no more requirement for application fee refunds for missed provincial timelines. So this presentation is going to speak to those two pieces and how we've adapted to those with the next slide. So the report before you has 5 recommendations. And first, there's going to be in the report is the Bill 109 monitoring update to close the loop on the previous legislation. Recommendations 2, 3, and 4 really update the bylaws and the policy to remove the mandatory pre-consultation and application fee refunds. And in recommendation 5, converts the temporary positions that were approved as part of Bill 109 to permanent. And this is to continue the same high level of service and also provide greater flexibility to applicants. Next slide, please. So in terms of a little bit of background on the Bill 109 pieces, so you'll recall that with Bill 109, the province installed timelines for us to meet. So 60 calendar days for approving a site plan control, 90 calendar days for a zoning bylaw amendment, and that was to provide a decision, which was that was rendered by council. And then they also gave us 120 calendar days to provide a decision on the joint zoning bylaw amendment and official plan amendment. So I'll ask you to remember that 120 days because it's going to come in a little bit handy later. So in response to Bill 109, the city amendment is procedures to introduce a multi-phased pre-consultation process, which included a quality check for council-approved policies, guidelines, and master plans, and also removed flexibility for applicants to resubmit during official review. There was no pause the clock during Bill 109 to meet these timelines, so we needed to be in control for the entire period of time. Council also approved additional staff to offer a higher level of service to applicants in order for us to meet those timelines. Next slide, please. We also wanted to talk a little bit about what do the provincial timelines mean under each bill. So for Bill 109, the timelines really marked a deadline at the risk of financial penalty. And this was as opposed of working with applicants to get to yes. We really were focused on the timelines. Under Bill 185, it marks the ability for the applicant to appeal for non-decision. So municipalities have the ability to go beyond this timeline to work with applicants to get to yes. Next slide, please. So on this slide, it shows a comparison between pre-Bill 109, Bill 109, and Bill 185 processes. So looking at pre-Bill 109, the mandatory process took over 200 days with an average of 176 days in official review. So this is after an applicant submits their documents, and 30 plus days during pre-consultation. So you'll see that the color in terms of color scheme, blue is pre-consultation and green is official review, which is when the documents are actually submitted to the city. So going into Bill 109, we were able to reduce that process to 153 days of mandatory time, with 63 days being the 3 phases of pre-consultation that I mentioned earlier, and then meeting the 90 calendar days for a zoning decision. Under Bill 185, what we're proposing is for the mandatory part of the process to be 120 days, which is only the official review because we cannot mandate applicants to go for pre-consultation. So during this time, we're also going to be taking the 30 days under the Planning Act, the first 30 days, to make sure that the documentations that are provided are actually complete, consistent with one another, and consistent with the city's approved master plans and guidelines. So that is effectively describes the change from the 90 towards the 120, which is still meeting within the confines of the Planning Act, as I talked about a little bit earlier. We'll go to the next slide. So this slide goes a little bit more into like the nitty-gritty of like the big pieces of the process, and it shows the old Bill 109 process and the Bill 185 process. So we'll start at the top. So still blue is pre-consultation, green is the official review, and then you'll mark that there's an orange line. So that marks the beginning of the official review, where all of the documents are submitted to the city and the applicant pays. So you'll notice that the phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 of pre-consultation all have a 21 calendar date. That was the old process, and that was mandatory. The applicant would then submit their completed documents for circulation, at which point we would circulate to our technical agencies. We would post on DevApps. The residents and technical agencies would be able to provide comments. And then we would have a 45 static decision time where we actually go to committee. So that's the finalization of the report, publishing, going to committee, going to council, and then having the bylaw passed, which marks the end of the decision time. The second process under Bill 185, you're going to notice that it collapses phase 1 and phase 2 of pre-consult, which is essentially a meeting where the applicant comes in with their concept. They're going to meet with city staff. They're going to be receiving high-level feedback on their proposed concept. They're also going to be getting a list of materials and documentation that are going to be required for them to submit. And that's a really good opportunity for us to talk with them about scoping those requirements down, as opposed to them having to do too much. And they're also going to be getting a list of the technical agencies that we will eventually circulate to so that they can engage with them early. They're also encouraged to engage with the community as well as with the ward councillor during that meeting. It's a parallel process, and it's certainly encouraged for them to do so. The more people they talk to early, the better it is for them to be able to actually take in all that feedback ahead of producing all of those studies. You'll notice that the completeness check that used to be taken care of in phase 3 of pre-consultation is now moved within the official review period. So during that time, we're going to make sure that all the documents that come in adhere to the council guidelines and policies. And we're also going to be letting the applicant know within 30 days whether the documentation is complete or incomplete. We'll then proceed to the same circulation where we circulate to our technical agencies and publish online. And one of the key differences here is you're going to see an optional box at the bottom. So this is when I talked about providing flexibility to applicants, this is what we're talking about, where at the end of the circulation period, we're going to be offering the applicant the opportunity to review our draft recommendation before we go towards a decision. And at that point, the applicant's going to have 7 days to let us know if they would like to pause the application, work on their documentation, and resubmit. So that is something that was not available under Bill 109, but we are going to be able to offer that service, that flexibility to applicants going forward. And the benefit is for them to be able to have a decision that really encompasses what they actually want the development to be. And we would commit to offering a renewed recommendation within 45 calendar days. And then the decision is the static period to actually go to committee and council afterwards. So that's another 45 calendar day period. With that, we're going to go to the next slide. So what will these changes achieve? So primarily, we're going to talk about the points on the slide. So we're talking about consistency of process. The city will provide applicants with the same intensity of service as under Bill 109. The revised process will ensure that the city provides feedback or a decision on a development application within 120 calendar days. This will ensure a consistent timeline for applicants to secure application approvals. We're also confirming staff resources. To offer the same level of intensity of service provided under Bill 109, the city plans to make permanent the temporary staff positions needed to meet the Bill 109 timelines. This would have no budget impacts as the cost and revenue increases already have been incorporated in the existing budget. Simpler pre-consultation. Applicants that opt to pre-consult will no longer face a phased approach. The process would take no longer than 21 calendar days because the current phase 3 pre-consultation would be part of the official review. And that ensures that council approved policies, guidelines, and master plans are reflected in quality applications. Flexibility to submit concurrent applications. This is something that we've very much heard from industry during Bill 109, and the city will reinstitute the ability to submit concurrent applications for zoning amendments and site plan control. The city had removed these as part of Bill 109, and we're reinstoring that. Flexibility to revise applications. The proposed changes, as I just showed, would enable applicants to resubmit. That flexibility had been removed with Bill 109 and is something that is going to enable faster application review. And an expedient policy change. The city has adapted quickly to Bill 185 to help minimize the potential delays in application review. The city has taken under 4 months to provide a report to council to adapt to that legislation. And next slide is just questions. So we'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Alex and Derek, for the great presentation. I'm going to turn around for a question from council.
Thank you, Chair, and Alex and Derek. Thanks for the presentation. In terms of the no impact on the budget, that's because these costs are already covered under the development process. Those part of the application fees paid by applicants.
Yeah, that's correct. And when we approved the Bill 109 process, the positions were approved on a temporary basis. The fees have been adjusted accordingly to compensate that. You know, we do strive towards cost recovery in planning services and in the development review portion of planning services. And so it is built into our base budget currently.
And there's nothing so permanent as something temporary. But in this case, was there any ever thought given to not renewing these temporary positions, or did we believe further down the line as today that they eventually would be made permanent?
When we had the discussion initially through the Bill 109 process, you know, I think there was an expectation that they would become permanent. There was, you know, it was a significant shift in our process. There was questions as to whether we were going to be able to achieve our timelines. I think through Bill 109 and the applications that's come in through Bill 109, it's been demonstrated that the additional resources have helped, and we have been able to meet those Bill 109 timelines. I'm proud that we haven't given any money back to developers when other municipalities like Toronto have given back, you know, in the neighborhood of $5 million. So I think that's a win. You know, there was questions as to whether we were going to be able to recruit the staff at the time and whether we're going to be able to fill those positions, and we have filled those positions. We're coming today to ask to make them permanent so that we don't have to, you know, lose them. And we've got the 18-month window is coming to a close in December. And so, you know, we appreciate that the staff people that are in those temporary positions, you know, are going to be looking for, you know, clarity on their future. And if there isn't a permanent spot for them, then they're going to start looking for work elsewhere. You know, we've had good luck in recruiting through so, you know, we've got a bit of a downturn right now in the housing market, and we have had success in recruiting. And we know from history that when the market heats up again, that's not the best time to be out, you know, trying to attract resources.
And I saw in the report that we've created a 6th team to help with, among some things, capacity issues. So when we see that surge of applications, the managers of each of these 6 teams can get together, chat, and then try to move work around. Has that been successful to date, moving some of that work?
Yeah, and I mean, I will be completely upfront. We are in a bit of a downturn, so that we aren't seeing the same pressures, you know, in 2024 that we have seen in like 2021 and 2022 when things were absolutely crazy. The 6th team is focused on a number of things. One of them is, you know, working closely as our single point of contact for our affordable housing providers, nonprofit affordable housing providers. You know, they work on school boards, so our school boards will always work with that group regardless of where in the city they are. And the Committee of Adjustment has been consolidated in that group as well. And so in addition to that, there's resources that are available to act as swing, and there has been some sharing and shifting of whether it's engineers or planners. You know, that resource is available to fulfill that need. And as things ramp up, as we expect them to, you know, we'll see more and more of that.
And my last question, Chair. I'm thinking more of the smaller applicants, the one-offs, or folks who might only do 1 or 2 building projects a year, not the big home builders that come in and do several hundred units at a time. But under this new process, we're hoping the timeline stays relatively short compared to what it has been in the past. I just want to make sure that we're trying to be as competitive as possible, and something I know the chair and Councillor Kelly and I have mentioned in the past. when we talk to our colleagues in the smaller townships around us, and then you speak with some of these applicants, the process dealing with us compared to some of these townships is a lot longer. And we start to hear about development happening at a greater level in these neighboring townships, which means they're getting that tax base, they're getting those residents and that economic activity. Is this going to help us become a little more competitive when we're comparing ourselves to our neighbors around us?
I think when we talk about small builders and one-offs, often it's, we're talking about things that are tied to, committee of adjustment applications for a variance or a severance or a building permit application with our thresholds for site plan control. A lot of those small projects, like 10 units or less, does not have to go through site plan control anymore. And so those projects, that are smaller in nature, we typically don't in planning services put our hands on them, aside from looking at the grading plans. When we do see something coming in for a site plan, like a commercial or an industrial facility, keeping this predictability, I think, is going to help. I mean, there's a number of factors why a business may choose to locate, in a neighboring municipality. It could be cost, it could be where their market is, it could be development charges, it could be other components, or it's typically not, as much as people like to think it's our taxes. Our tax rates are actually very competitive with our neighboring municipalities. So there's a variety of reasons why a business may choose to locate somewhere other than in Ottawa. Hopefully, I guess our intent is to provide some predictability in the process. It is a competitive timeline, I think, with other municipalities across the province. And if we're actually able to hit those targets, that certainty is ultimately beneficial.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So I'm gonna have just to continue the conversation concerning some of the rural development. In your view, or in the new process that we're proposing, and I see that we're very happy to see the 33 full FTEs and full times that, and of course, it's hard in this industry right now to find planners, and I'm happy that to have them as a permanent. What is translate and what this is actually will do for rural subdivision and rural development from a perspective of what we used to be before and what we are today? Because as much as you heard from Councillor Brown, we do have a challenges, and we always hear about the timeline. So what's the good news? What's the good story here for us?
I think there's a couple of things that I can speak to. And, if you think back to the slide that had the different arrows and the chunks, one of the things that we are looking to implement, instead of looking at our timeline as a whole, is breaking it down into the components and really trying to manage according to each of the timelines attached to those components. So I'm not waiting till 120 days to say, oh, a file is off track, right? I've got a 30-day window at the start where I've got a touch point back with the applicant to tell them if their application is deemed complete or if there's a shortfall. I've got a 45-day window, which is really our meat and potatoes in planning services. And, we're going to be focusing on making sure that we get the comments back from our partners in other departments or other agencies in order to be able to get to a point where we make a decision. And at that 45-day point, our intent is to have another touch point with the applicant to say, here's where we're at. Which path do you want to go on? And they've got the choice as to whether they want to push forward for a decision or whether they want to go, through the process again, to get to yes. The decisions that we have before us, on a zoning, the decisions that we have to make are, we can approve it, we can refuse it, we can improve it with a holding provision, or I can approve something different than what the applicant asked for. And the first one is the one the applicant typically wants, and it avoids having to go to the OLT. The other three may result in OLT hearings. And so that flexibility in our process to be able to go through that process, I think, is ultimately helpful, but the decision will be, rest with the applicant, whether they want us to go forward for a decision or not. And we will have some applicants that want to just get to a decision, and they will accept that we're never going to get on the same page and we'll go on the path that we need to go on. But most of our applicants that we've seen over time and before Bill 109 would prefer to work with us and get to a consensus where we're all on the same page. The additional resources that were approved in Bill 109, while the process is really focused on zonings and site plans, because that's where the significant impacts were from Bill 109, And that's what we're changing again here today. It doesn't necessarily impact subdivisions, but half of those resources roughly are in other groups other than planning services. So it means that those groups, whether it's, our asset management group, they don't have somebody working off the corner of their desk on development applications when they can get to it. They've got somebody that's dedicated to looking at applications and responding and working through the issues that come up through the development process. So it is putting more of a focus on those other groups on development as opposed to having it, work off the side of somebody's desk.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I wanna, on slide 8, when we talk about the cube and we're talking about the process, most of the time people come to us say, okay, well, we wanna have a development, and we ask them, it's better to do pre-consult. And I understand this process right now, it's not mandatory anymore, but there is any incentive or anything like, so we're not gonna talk about the firm that they already knows the rules and the process and all that stuff. I'm talking about the small development, again, for the people that they want to start development. What is the benefit and what is the incentive for them? Because we need to still send them to look at before they go to the application process. We want to convince them to go to the pre-consult.
And ultimately, the choice is theirs, and we cannot force them. And we believe that most of our applications and applicants will go through that process, whether they're sophisticated, experienced applicants or not. The benefit, for all of them, and maybe more so for the smaller, less experienced applicants, is it provides us to have an early discussion about what the city sees as important. So as they're paying their consultants to complete their plans and studies, they have an opportunity to have those studies potentially scoped. So we're only looking at the things that are important to the city and not, a wide variety of things when really the city only cares about a narrow subsect of that particular study. They may have studies taken off the list because it's not relevant in that situation. And so, we believe it's good value. I think most of our applicants believe it's good value because it can narrow things down. It will also sort of provide them with the list and the expectations of what is actually going to be required to submit a study that's going to be deemed complete. Gives them a chance to ask us questions and have a dialogue, start a dialogue on their proposal to help, ultimately get an application that's going to go through the process smoothly.
Thank you. And I've been to this process before, so those are really still benefits. So if you tell them what kind of study they need, or if you trigger red flag right from the get-go, those are the incentive and those are some of the challenges that the applicant will be facing, I'm assuming. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely, Chair.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for the presentation. I don't see any other question. We appreciate you being here this morning. Alex and Derek, thank you very much. Report the recommendation that the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee recommend Council, number 1, receive for information the update and on the internal process changes undertaken since July 1st, 2023 as part of Bill 109 implementation monitoring, and 2, approve the amendments to pre-consultation by law 2023-296 as per document 1 attached to this report to make the pre-consultation process non-mandatory as Bill 185, and number 3, approve the amendments to the public notification and consultation policy attached as document 2 to this report, and 4th, approve the amendments to the planning fees bylaw 2024-33 attached as document 3 to this report, and 5th, approve the conversion to permanent of 33 full-time equivalent FTE positions approved in report AC 2023 pre-Gen 0005 to continue to meet the provincial timelines for development applications. Is that carried?
Carried.
Carried. Thank you very much. Sorry about that. Next is 4.6. And is an ATV using municipal roads to access Marlborough Forest for special events. We have Ryan Thompson here, and of course, Mr. Moody is still here with us. And we have a small presentation for us. I'm assuming, and then we have 2 delegations, so.
Morning to the chair.
Thank you, Ryan.
Move the next slide. So in June of 2013, we started with ATVs and had the history of them. And Ottawa passed the bylaw 2013-199 instituting the ATV Trail Pilot Project for Osgoode Ward. It authorized the use of ATVs in the city in Ward 20 on selected roads, road allowances, and trails, and allowed ATVs to be used for the next 6 years on slowly growing trail system. In December 2019, the ATV pilot project was adopted into a permanent bylaw under bylaw ATV ORV and snowmobile bylaw number 2019-421. This bylaw outlines how ATVs are allowed to operate in the city and on what roads they're allowed specifically to operate on. Next slide, please. In June of 2024, the Rideau Lakes ATV Club contacted the Rural Affairs Office about having a charity ride. This ride would be for Lanark County Community Housing Support and would occur on Saturday, September 21st from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. In the ensuing weeks, the ATV Club developed a route through an iterative process with the city and staff, directed them to go to the special events traffic to get a permit for the event. At the same time, staff would work to go on a bylaw to permit the ATVs to use the city roads for the event. Next slide, please. The route itself for the charity ride will enter the city from Lanark County and will take Ashton Station Road from Graham Road to Purdy Road. Then the ride will turn left onto Purdy Road and take that all the way to Dwyer Hill Road, where it'll turn left and follow that up to Jock Trail. It'll follow Jock Trail to Munster Road and Munster Road down to Kettles Road and Kettles Road into the Forest Access Road for Marlborough Forest. It will continue down to Marlborough Forest to about the midpoint where they will break for lunch. Next slide, please. After they break for lunch, they'll continue down the Marlborough Forest Access Road until they hit Paddon Road, where they will turn right. And they will continue on Paddon Road until they get to Dwyer Hill Road, where they will turn right again until they get to Heathview Road Allowance, where they will turn left and travel along the Heathview Road Allowance until they get to a Forest connector point to get down to Gilroy Road, where they will travel out of the city. Next slide, please. Special events traffic permit request has gone through the comment period and no comments were returned by those it was circulated to. This includes traffic and emergency services. The permit is pending the enactment of the bylaw. Forestry has also approved the route through the Marlborough Forest. The ATV Club worked with Forestry and accommodated all of their concerns and provided new and alternative routes that exceeded the expectations of Forestry staff, including coordination with Alessi on city lands to minimize the impact on surrounding areas. Next slide, please. Oh, that's the last slide. The bylaw would allow for the ATV charity ride to happen within the city limits, and this is the last remaining piece for the ride. It'll be valid for the ride only, being enforced only for September 21st, 2024, and being rescinded on September 22nd, 2024.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Before we go to question or the comment, we have 2 delegation on this one. We have first Mr. Mike Starr. Good morning, Mike. Thank you for being here today, and we'll give you 5 minutes to comment on that.
Thank you so much, councillors, for your time. So I'm Mike Starr. I'm the president of the Rideau Lakes ATV Club. I'm also a member of the Rideau Snowmobile Club and the groomer operator for the same, more or less a lot of the same trails we're using. So I do work with the Snowmobile Club to ensure we are maintaining the same trails with them. Yeah, this route here more or less follows the same proposal we've had for the last 5 years with the city to make a permanent trail system through Marlborough Forest, as well as the roads connect to our existing trails. due to that length it's taken to get that passed, I thought this is a great opportunity for us to do a one-day ride and be able to showcase some of the wonderful trails we do have in Ottawa. Once this gets approved, I know this would be a big attractant for this ride, as it's going to promote a mostly trail ride, especially being able to use Marlborough Forest and some of the road allowances. I happened to meet with the leasee at the farm there just off Gilroy Road and addressed his concerns of making sure people are staying out of the field as people are running it up. So I will rope off the area there to ensure that ATVs stay within the trail boundaries. Other than that, this is a good opportunity. This ride does include things as well as we manage part of the OVRT. So it's a shared rail trail similar to what is in the Osgood ward. So we are showcasing that, as well as our ability to show that how we can, use the managed forest as well as road allowances with other user groups. We will use wardens to help cross the major intersections to ensure that we do not provide much impact on traffic. And then, yes, so the lunch stop will be within Marlborough Forest. I think it's a great opportunity, but safe way for everyone to park and enjoy a lunch. So far we've raised over $6,000 just in sponsorships. That doesn't include the registration fees. So if all goes well, hope to have about a $10,000 check to be able to donate to this charity. This is what we like to do as ATV clubs, is give back to the community as best as possible, and this is the way we do that. So I think unless there's any question, that's really all I have to add.
Thank you very much, Mike. We appreciate the effort and the work the ATV club does. Any question? Okay, go ahead. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much, Ryan, for the presentation, and Mike, for you coming out today. I think Ryan did a good job at detailing the route, and you've also referenced it, but what's for lunch? Yeah.
Well, we're working on donations there, hopefully burgers and sausages. Unfortunately, we're conflicting with the Richmond Fair, so if you're not going to the fair, if you want to come have a quick bite to eat on your way there, we'll be hopefully just off Roger Stevens.
Well, thank you very much. I'm really looking forward to this, and I'll be at the Richmond Fair, so I won't be able to attend, but I think this is fantastic. It really will showcase some of the gems that we have in rural Ottawa, and next year just schedule it for Metcalfe Fair, because we can all skip that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brown. We're really happy to have you here, and from an organization perspective, and you're saying that this is going to be annual event, is that something you're planning to be it in the future?
So we look at, I know we have the other delegate, Dave Baker, who represents another club as well. Most of the ATV clubs do various charity rides. So won't speak much about Nation Valley, but I used to be a member of that club too. We used to host the Ride for Dad, and I think in the 4 years we did that, we raised over $300,000 for Ride for Dad. It might be higher than that. Dave can correct that. But yeah, like I said, most clubs do a ride. We did one 2 years ago. We were a smaller club and we stuck to our existing trail system. I really wanted to push this to be a bigger one, and we're known as the club that has a lot of roads. So this whole proposal that I have into Ottawa for the last 5 years gives us a lot more trail and really gives an opportunity to showcase what we can do within I'm going to say a city boundary, right, of Ottawa, and to do this. So I know a lot of ATVs enthusiasts really love to use Marlborough Forest and the surrounding trails there. And I have been working with the Snowmobile Club. So we're doing a lot of joint projects now to maintain trails. So I just spent a couple $1,000 last week fixing some of the trails up to help with the Snowmobile Club as well. So, but yes, so to answer your question a long way, yeah, we hope to do more annual events, and this is probably the route I'd like to keep doing. So it's been 7 municipalities I've been dealing with to get this going, as we are doing a lot of new trails that we're hoping to get in the near future.
Thank you very much, Mike. I really appreciate the effort and the work. I know this is all volunteer for you guys, and we as a Rural Affair Committee, we understand and we know the hard work you put on the trail, specifically also especially from the economy you drive into our small rural areas. Not only that, also probably the family activities and the fundraiser you do to the community. So we really appreciate it. Thank you very much for being here. Next presenter is Dave Baker. Hey, Dave. Good morning. You got 5 minutes to address the committee, so floor is yours.
All right. Thank you very much. I don't know if I have a whole lot more to add beyond what Mike Starr has already given you guys and Ryan Thompson. So I from Nation Valley ATV Club. So we've had trails in the city of Ottawa since 2013. We were the pilot project kind of deal. And so Nation Valley, I also represent the OFATV, like the provincial federation. So we're very excited to see that the city's engaging with the ATV community again. We've kind of just been dabbling our toe in it for the last 10 years kind of deal, and it's nice to see that we're kind of moving forward and expanding now, because as Mr. DeRuse had mentioned, you know, it's showcasing the tourism and the economical benefits, plus giving, you know, our residents in the city of Ottawa a place to ride their machines, right? People keep buying them, so they're going to ride them somewhere. So it's really nice to have a legal, responsible place for them to ride. You know what I mean? Gives places to ride their machines. It gets heads and beds, customers to the businesses, and you know the added benefit is it's at no cost to the city, right? Because the same as the snowmobile clubs, the ATV clubs are the ones that are going to take care and maintain the city properties that you guys allow us to use. So it's fantastic, and we're really looking forward to expanding. So you know, now that the bylaw has been locked in place, myself and Mike Starr and a few other people have been working with Ryan Thompson to expand. You know, hopefully, we're really excited to see this one day pass kind of deal for Rideau Lakes ATV Club, and hoping that that will portions of that will become permanent. Nation Valley is working on hopefully getting some routes that get us around the Wood Duck Swamp. And I'm also working with the West Carleton ATV Club for some proposals for adding some roads in that area of the city of Ottawa. So really looking forward to seeing this stuff moving forward. It's kind of gone at a snail's pace here since we began, but we're really starting to see some movement here, and it's very encouraging. You know what I mean? It's looking great. So thank you for the opportunity to speak. And if you guys have any questions, let me know.
Thank you very much, Dave. We appreciate all the work you do, and we appreciate the presentation. I want to see if there is a question first from other committee member. I want to talk a little bit about the expansion and expanding the trails and working with our staff. I know it's been a long conversation, and we've been talking about it for a long time. I know there was a pilot project put, as Ryan mentioned in his presentation, in Osgood Ward 20, and I've been seeing some of the work that our staff has been doing, and I understand your members are eager and working with the city to making sure we have some edible trail and some expansion on those trails and bring more economy and more benefit to the communities from both fundraising and businesses and gas and stuffs that actually boost the rural economy a little bit. I've been talking with staff a little bit, and with the timeline that we do have, we're working as a team. I think we need to take a serious look at it. And from a perspective of that, we'd like to see some more engagement and some more collaboration with the ATV club, with our staff, and hopefully that we can come to a conclusion. My question probably will be to you, Dave. One is you propose to us all these plan. I'm assuming you send it to staff and working on Wood Duck Swamp and some other areas in West Carleton and Osgood Ward. And I also like to see some of the expansion to La Rose Forest too, because we're getting some requests, because they have a great trails, and we do have VARs at the edge. So there's lots of pieces here we've been talking about, and we've been throwing around, and our staff has been trying to have those conversations. Is that okay with yourself and your team for us to put some kind of direction to staff, or something that collectively we can work on those projects moving forward, and some kind of report will be coming for us next year or something?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm more than happy to work with more hands-on, hand in hand with staff kind of deal to get this moving forward. And as you said, we do have multiple irons in the fire, right? We're looking to expand to the east so we can join Nation Valley's trails to our neighboring trail system, which is the ATV Club of Eastern Ontario. That would allow people to exit the city and go to La Rose Forest, or vice versa, people riding in the La Rose Forest area to tour through Ottawa and hit all our local businesses and tour back down either to Rideau Lakes or down to Nation Valley. Like, it's a method to bring people through the city or out of the city, you know, both people living in and out of the city. We're trying to get we have an orphan chunk of trail that's north of the Wood Duck Swamp that we can't get to because you can't drive through the Wood Duck Swamp without a boat. So we're trying to get around that, whether it's using a portion of the multi-use pathway or using River Road. We're happy with either solution, like using the multi-use pathway, like the ATV club's willing to brush that back. They're willing to mow it. They're willing to grade it. So at no cost to the city, we're willing to maintain that 1.6 kilometers of multi-use pathway if we would have access to use it. And yeah, it's been something we've been working on for a long time, right? Because when we did the trial bylaw, it was supposed to be for a year, and instead that ended up being 6 years of a trial. And then when it came into fruition, we were supposed to start the expansion into 2020. Then the pandemic hit, and then it was pushed to 2021. And then from 2021, we're now in 2024, still asking for the same updates kind of deal. But, you know, we understand that these things take time. So, you know, we've been very patient trying to add to this since 2013. So we're hoping, you know, 2025 is going to be the year that we get some addition to this, the rubber hits the road kind of deal, for lack of a better term, right?
Yeah, no, thank you very much. No, we really, I appreciate your presentation. I know the conversation has been going, and I understand the concern is safety and making sure we have adequate trails to making sure everybody's safe, and how we can move members of the ATV club and not having interaction also with other user of the trails and also pedestrian and cycle. Like, we have lots of moving parts. We need to look at that. But I personally appreciate you being here this morning and address the committee.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do so.
Thank you. I do have a question to start, like a question to our team, Derek and probably Ryan. I know we've been tossing around all these. Do you have any comment first? I mean, we've been having those pilots since 2019, I think, or sorry, way before, probably 2013 or something.
Yeah, Chair, I think when we first started the discussions, and I was involved with, you know, the discussions early on the pilot, back, I guess if 2013, it makes me feel a little old, but that is, you know, 11 years ago. You know, there was some hesitation, there was some trepidation as to what the impacts would be and whether this would generate some complaints from the community. I think since that time, we haven't been overwhelmed with complaints. Certainly, you know, having a trail network that is cohesive and connected provides options for participants. And, you know, the more options there are for participants, the better the experience is and the more likely people are to use it. You know, I think, you know, part of the discussion we had in 2013, you know, was around, you know, ensuring compliance. And one of the things, you know, when snowmobile clubs got established back in like the 70s and 80s, it was, you know, largely because, you know, snowmobiles were all over the place doing all kinds of things. And in the winter months, you can cross over fence. There was more snow then. You could cross over fences and go wherever you chose. And the generation of the clubs and having a, you know, a legal and responsible place to partake in that activity ended up actually, you know, encouraging compliance and improved relations with neighbors and whatnot. And so, you know, I think staff have been working closely with the clubs, but I also appreciate that it's been with a void of direction and a policy framework to advance some of those discussions. And certainly, you know, I think having some clarity that, you know, the committee and council actually want us to be working on these things and bringing these things forward, I think is ultimately helpful, and would look forward to bringing some of these discussions to a close as well.
Yeah, thank you. And the reason is why there is multiple concern in the community if we do not have organized trails. So the problem is, if you don't have a trails, people goes on other people's property. We live in farming community. You can ruin crops in one weekend. So if we have an organized trail and we have an organized club like the ATV club that's responsible, that we can work with them, I personally think always find our pilot project are more successful. So with the will of committee, I do have a direction to staff to give you direction on how we want to work, and I'm hoping that we can work together on this one. That the city staff are directed to conduct a fulsome review of the ATV trail network in consultation with the local ATV clubs and rural communities to explore amendments to the ATV, ORV, and snowmobile bylaw 2019-421 that would support the expansion of the ATV trail network and report back to Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee by Q1 2025. I'm hoping that we can accommodate that direction.
Yes, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you very much for Dave and Mike for being here this morning. Okay. So we're gonna move to item 5.1. Wetland Omnibus Official Plan Amendment and Zoning Bylaw Amendment. We do have a presentation. I think we have Tara Redpath here with us. She'll be doing the presentation. Also, we have Dr. Nick Stowe is with us also. And we also have Director of Climate Change and Resiliency, Will McDonald. I think he's here. Oh, you're here. Thank you very much for being here with us this morning. And we'll go through the presentation, then we'll go to delegation, then we'll go to questions. Yes, I apologize. We have to carry the ATV item. We forgot. We were put direction, but we didn't carry the item. Is the item 4.6 is carried?
Carried.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, now we clear that. We'll go back to Tara.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Good morning, Chair and councillors and guests. I think we have slides. I'm sure Kelly's just pulling those up. Perfect. So my name is Tara Redpath, and I'm a Natural Systems Policy Planner. I'm here today with Nick Stowe, who's Program Manager of Natural Systems in our Strategic Initiatives Department. And we're here today to speak about a staff-initiated official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment concerning wetlands in the rural area. Next slide, please. So I would just like to begin by providing some context on wetland policies. Wetlands provide multiple environmental, social, and economic benefits. They provide wildlife habitat, protect water quality, and mitigate flood risk, among other benefits. So provincially significant wetlands, or PSWs, as I'll refer to them throughout the presentation, are subject to the highest standard of environmental protection under provincial and municipal planning policies. Development and site alteration are generally not permitted. So wetlands in Ontario are considered significant if they meet minimum scoring requirements or thresholds established under the Ontario Wetland Evaluation System, and we call that OES for short. In late 2022, the province brought forward a series of changes to the OES that made it easier for designated PSWs to be reevaluated and reclassified as non-provincially significant. The amendments proposed in today's report have been triggered by several private wetland reevaluations that have been submitted to the city in recent months. These are actually the first wetland reevaluations that the city has seen following those changes to the OES in 2022. Next slide, please. So before I go too much further, I would just like to be clear that the recommendations stemming from today's report are separate from consultations you may have been aware of that were taking place a few months ago by some of our local conservation authorities. These are concerning regulation mapping for the Conservation Authorities Act and wetlands. So today's report concerns official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendments for existing PSWs. It's related to designations in the city's official plan, schedules, and provisions in the zoning bylaw. PSWs have already been subject to Conservation Authority regulations for many years. A permit continues to be required for all development activities that are proposed in or within a 30-meter buffer of Conservation Authority regulated wetlands. Next slide, please. So the report before you today describes a few minor modifications to the boundaries of several provincially significant wetlands and amends the status of several evaluated wetlands. These wetland evaluations were initiated by private landowners and are related to wetlands that occur on their privately owned property. 2 areas of the Goulburn Wetland Complex, representing approximately 55 hectares, have recently been reevaluated and their status has changed from provincially significant to non-provincially significant. These changes have been accepted by the Provincial Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry and have been published in provincial mapping already. So this official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment would align the city's official plan schedules and our zoning bylaw with the provincial updates, as is required under the policies of our official plan. Next slide, please. So although the status of PSW reflects the highest standard of protection for wetlands in Ontario, wetlands without this status are still afforded some degree of protection. In the City of Ottawa, 98.6% of our PSWs also fall within our Natural Heritage System core area overlay. Under the policies of our official plan, development and site alteration in core areas must demonstrate no negative impact and must maintain or enhance the integrity, biodiversity, and ecosystem services of the area. So these policies still apply, even if a wetland has been reevaluated and deemed non-provincially significant. Any development or site alteration that is proposed within or adjacent to wetlands is also subject to an environmental impact study that must demonstrate no negative impacts on the feature. And as I mentioned earlier, our local conservation authorities also do regulate development activities in and within 30 meters of their regulated wetlands. And this applies not only to PSWs in some jurisdictions. A permit is required before the start of development. And then it's important to note as well that wetlands are considered to be open files. So this means that new evaluations or reevaluations can be undertaken at any time. So this could on occasion result in new PSWs that were not previously designated, being designated as such. Next slide, please. So I thought I would just quickly take you through 2 examples from the report before you just to make it a little clearer. Both examples are proposed within the Goulburn Wetland Complex. And this first is for several addresses along David Manchester Road. So the blue area shows the existing significant wetland designation. And the area that's circled in red is the part that will be removed and replaced with the Natural Heritage Features overlay, which is shown in light green shading. And you can see that there's Natural Heritage Features overlay surrounding that wetland already. The feature is still considered a natural heritage feature because it is a mapped surface water feature, and it also contains significant woodlands in some parts. The black hatching that you see represents the Natural Heritage System, the core area, and that overlay will remain with no changes. The zoning, which I didn't show on this map because it would make it a little bit messy, but it will be changed from environmental protection to rural countryside, and that will align with the surrounding zoning for that area. And then next slide, please. So this is just a second example. The same color coding applies. This is also within the Goulburn Wetland Complex, and it's for several addresses along Jenkinson Road. Again, the significant wetland that is circled in the middle in red will be removed and replaced again with the natural heritage features. For the same reasons as before, it's a mapped surface water feature and there are significant woodlands on the site. Some in the areas circled in black, just sort of to the north, west, I guess, or east, those areas, there'll be some minor adjustments made to the boundary of the wetland, but that portion off to the northeast remains as a PSW. There is a wetland crossed out in red near the bottom there. That is not subject to today's report. It was addressed in a separate official plan amendment. Again, the Natural Heritage System core area remains with no changes, and the zoning will be updated from environmental protection to rural countryside. And then, so that's it for the examples I was going to show, but just to let you know that the remaining amendments from this report only concern minor boundary adjustments. And then
Thank
next
you.
slide. And then, thanks so much for the opportunity. And if there are any questions after the delegations, we'd be happy to take them.
Thank you very much, Tara. Before we go to question, I think we have a delegation. We're gonna start with our first delegation, Janet Stavinga, Friends of Stittsville Wetlands. Janet, good morning. You know the rules, and we're very happy to have you here this morning with us to address the committee. Thank you very much for.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just wondering, I'd asked if I do have a presentation in terms of a PowerPoint. So I'm wondering if I could actually put or share my screen, take a few moments, whether that's possible. Oh, I see that I can. Okay, so if you can give me a few moments to deal with the technology, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. I think we gave you permission for that. Do you want to check it?
I'd just like to confirm with the committee that they can indeed see the presentation at this point in time.
Yes, we can see the presentation. Thank you.
That's great. Sorry, I'm just gonna. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. The Friends of Stittsville Wetlands are a volunteer community-based not-for-profit corporation committed to protecting, restoring, regenerating, and rewilding fragile ecologically significant wetlands in proximity to Stittsville, particularly the Goulburn Wetland Complex. This wetland is accessible via the Trans-Canada Trail, Canada's national trail, and the world's longest network of multi-use recreational trails. Our organization became incorporated on January 1st, 2024. Since our inception, we have built an enviable network of partners who have been and continue to be instrumental in advancing the mission. Although this matter is being considered by the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee, the issues being discussed are citywide and multifaceted and are relevant to the mandates and the responsibility of many other committees. Further, the importance of wetland protection is intrinsic to many of the multidisciplinary plans and policies of the city. The ecological health and the functionality of our wetlands continue to be threatened, and at the same time, nature's very own nature-based climate solution is irreversibly damaged. Locally, significant historic and ongoing losses continue to happen across our city. Details are provided in our submission. Ontario Nature will be speaking further on this issue. Provincially, we have seen the weakening of protection for wetlands, including the abandonment and archiving of the Wetland Conservation Strategy for Ontario. And in late 2022, as spoken by Tara, along with a host of other legislative, regulatory, and policy changes purporting to support Ontario's Housing Supply Action Plan, we saw the implementation of a new weakened system for identifying and designating provincially significant wetlands. The consequences of this weakened evaluation system are severe. Many, but not all the consequences are described within the staff report, and will be spoken further by Ontario Nature, including the impacts on the Goulburn Wetland Complex. The result is a system that makes it much harder for wetlands to achieve and maintain their designation and the protection in parts marred by a complete absence of transparency and accountability. We understand the city is obligated to accept the new weakened provincial process, despite the city raising objections to these changes in November 2022. We also appreciate the city's efforts to bring accountability and transparency to the process by peer reviewing the wetland evaluations and publicly sharing documentation related to the changes in the wetland status of these sites. However, following our review of the report, we are advancing additional recommendations as there is a tremendous opportunity for the city to strengthen corporate accountability for wetland protection and to establish indicators for progress. Our recommendations are grouped into 4 themes, and further details are provided in Table 1 of our submission. In summary, we are recommending the following. 1, ensure consistency in official plan policies related to the protection of wetlands. We understand that this particular matter is anticipated to be considered at your meeting on October 3rd, and we ask for your support. 2, development of baseline information for the official plan monitoring report, including the identification of a suite of indicators to measure the effectiveness of the city's OP policies and objectives to protect wetlands, and in particular, the approach of no net loss of wetland area and function. And we have recommended the inclusion of certain very specific baseline information as described in Table 1. 3, review the effectiveness of the city's new natural heritage system policies relative to other municipalities to provide valuable insights into the compilation of the city's first ever official plan monitoring report. And 4, to communicate to the province the adverse impacts of the newly adopted and weakened Ontario Wetland Evaluation System for identifying and designating provincially significant wetlands and illustrating firsthand the changes that we are observing within our city. Now, more than ever, we need to be unwavering in our efforts to ensure the survival of our wetlands across our city for those species that call them home, for ourselves, and for future generations. I'll leave you with a very short video from a charitable organization in the UK, established in 1946 through the efforts of Sir Peter Scott, a man described by Sir David Attenborough as a patron saint of conservation. May this video inspire us in our conversations and our actions to protect, restore our wetlands. I'm just confirming that you can see that. Chair?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. We'll just, it's less than 1 minute.
The video is not playing, but we can see your screen.
Okay. Sorry, if I could actually just give a few more moments, I apologize.
No problem.
I just, actually, I'm sorry. Okay, I apologize. I've got it on now about that. Sorry, my technology again, I apologize.
We can see it. No,
Can you see it now?
we
Okay.
can see something. Yeah,
Okay, and it's less, it is less than 1 minute, Chair, so I apologize for the delay.
no problem. Thank you very much, Janet, and don't go anywhere. Councillor Brown have questions for you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Janet. And for those that don't know, Janet was the last mayor of Goulburn and a city councillor after amalgamation. So it's always nice to have you back, Janet. You were kind enough to share a document yesterday with members of committee, and I know staff have seen it as well. Could you talk to me a little bit more in the committee about how some of those recommendations that you've posed have come about and what we can do here at committee to help move these forward?
Okay, I think, again, what's really important, as staff have indicated, this is something you're obligated to do this. This is a provincial process, so you're obligated to do it. Before some of the background, and again, I just want to highlight one of the note that Ms. Redpath mentioned. I just want to correct this because, again, it's important in terms of setting the stage for the additional recommendations is, I don't think she intended to do this, but she had said in the presentation that the Ministry of Natural Resources accepted these designations and updated. Just so you know, the Ministry of Natural Resources, when you hear the word accept, again, you're thinking of the context of a political decision, you're thinking that you have an opportunity to refuse it. But the Ministry of Natural Resources does not have any opportunity to refuse. They don't have any opportunity to appeal. They're not even reviewing it. In fact, they don't even actually get the reports. All that they receive is the data, so the shape files that goes actually to the ministry, to the geographical information system, and they load it up. That's it. That's all. There is no involvement whatsoever by the Ministry of Natural Resources in the review of these materials where they used to be. So we lost that knowledge within the ministry, and there's no opportunity even to appeal it. So if a member of the public has additional information, and we've had these situations in the Goulburn Township where we've had wetland evaluations done in the past, where new information has come to our attention, and where we've actually worked with the ministry and with the project proponent, and actually seen something become what is locally significant to provincially significant and complex with the Goulburn Wetland Complex. So there's a history that I've experienced since 1994 of the loss of wetlands, significant loss of wetlands. But in that period of over 30 years, as 12 years as a public official, but elsewhere as a community member, we've also had some significant wins too. So the recommendations that we're putting forward today are ones that will actually, as I mentioned earlier in my presentation, will strengthen the city's ability to provide corporate accountability for wetland protection and restoration. And certainly the city does mention in their consultation document that they are keen to be developing a official plan monitoring report, which we think is absolutely fabulous, and that needs to be done. But what we're saying specifically is that really is so very important, particularly because our wetlands have been under siege within our, not just in our city, Eastern Ontario and our province. The stats that you saw in the UK are very similar here. And so it's really important that we actually make sure that we get the right baseline information and to develop that report. And certainly staff have indicated that they will be doing that, but we have made recommendations as to what specific baseline information they should be including. And that's based upon the literature research that we've done and looked at technical studies across Canada too, in terms of best practices. So that's one of the recommendations that we provide, and very specifics within that particular table. Two is actually the need to do a suite of indicators. So even when you get that baseline information, you might actually find that some of that information you don't have available. So I don't think, for example, we have much information on carbon sequestration and carbon potential, but yet carbon, as you saw from the presentation, wetlands store an immense amount of carbon. They store more carbon than our forests do, in fact. They're one of the greatest capacity, and that's capacity to store carbon. And that's really important when you think of your plans about climate change and mitigation, your resiliency strategy. So again, it's important to not just, you have to actually measure the carbon sequestration, and that can be done. There are ways to do it, and there are organizations that have done it before and have the methodology to do that. Because for every wetland that you have that storage, but for every wetland that's lost, all those greenhouse gas emissions are released to the atmosphere. And that's often not thought about in our processes in terms of looking at development applications about that loss. So again, that's another parameter that we're thinking is very important that you need to collect in your baseline. And if you don't have it, then you need to actually start collecting it too. So the suite of indicators is very, very important, because you can't measure progress just on a single indicator. And I'm sure you've learned that when you look at development applications, it's not just about cost recovery, it's about other measures you need to be looking at in terms of timeliness and such. So that suite of indicators is very important. And what we're asking is that we also participate in the development of that. We know it's very important. You can have data, but you've got to make sure you've got the right data. So that's really key for that particular one. That would actually, as it relates to actually number two. Number three, in terms of the effectiveness of the policies, we're really encouraging you to, we are concerned. This is the first time, this is a new policy for the city and official plan. And I know city staff and the elected officials, when they adopt the official plan, are hoping that these are the best policies, but they need to be tried and they need to be tested. Certainly the report framework will help you gauge that, but there's nothing to preclude you from speaking to other municipalities. I've referred you to the government or the Auditor General's report in 2022, the value for money. That speaks to a number of municipalities, 12 out of 30, who actually have gone well above the provincial standards to protect wetlands, not just any types of wetlands. So we've encouraged staff, and encouraging all of you to take a look at those municipalities and see whether we can learn from others. There's no need to recreate the wheel, because we are concerned that maybe our policies, as much as we think they might be achieving what we want to achieve, may not. So let's learn from others. So that's really important in number three. And number four, why that is particularly important is, as was noted by Ms. Redpath in the presentation, you are one of the very first municipalities who's coming out of the gate, and you have you've actually, if I could say, raised the standard with regards to the approach that you have taken. You've made this a very public process. You've actually peer reviewed the wetland evaluations. Not all municipalities have done that. Not all municipalities have the capacity to even do that. You're very fortunate within the city that we are all very fortunate in the city to have those resources available to us. So, but still with that, we've had significant losses, in particular the Goulburn wetland complex of 55 hectares, which is 1/3 of the losses across this entire province from March 2022 to March 2023 to 2024. So we're the leader of the pack, which is actually not a good place to be in terms of the loss of provincially significant wetlands. So it's really important for the city to flag, to signal to the province what this new system has done to wetlands, the approach that you've taken, and how the province needs to actually to step it up, quite frankly, because they've been running the opposite direction.
Thank you very much. And Janet, I did have an opportunity to speak to staff, and I'll get them just to confirm in a moment, but they're certainly willing to go away between this committee meeting and the one we have in October to look at the list and how we can work some of these items. And I know some of them might have a budget implication, and budget directions happens at council in 2 weeks. So we want to make sure we take the time and the opportunity that you've provided us to continue to work together. And I know, Mr. Chair, Councillor Gower, who's been working very closely with Janet and the Friends of Stittsville Wetlands, would like to be included as well. So I'll just ask either Tara or Nick just to confirm that you're willing to take this away and work with us over the next month.
Yes, we are, Mr. Chair.
Well, thank you very much, Janet. And that's all the questions I have. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Brown. Councillor, we really appreciate you being here this morning, Janet. Thank you for the presentation, and we appreciate your advocacy always, as usual. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Our next delegation is Tony Morris from Ontario Nature. I see Tony on the screen. Tony, you have 5 minutes to address the committee. Please go ahead.
Thanks. Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Tony Morris, and I am here as the Conservation Policy and Campaigns Director with Ontario Nature. Established in 1931, Ontario Nature is a registered charity that protects wild species and wild spaces through conservation, education, and public engagement. With more than 30,000 members and supporters and over 150 member groups across the province, we are there when nature needs us most. This dedicated network of local conservation groups helps us identify and engage with local issues that have provincial significance, which is what brings me here today. I'll be speaking in support of the position and recommendations presented by Mrs. Davinga and the Friends of Stittsville Wetlands, one of Ontario Nature's member groups. Together, we are urging the members of this committee to ensure that municipal policies continue to protect the parcels of Goulburn Wetland Complex that have been reevaluated and remapped under the new and significantly weakened system for identifying provincially significant wetlands. The loss of provincially significant wetland status for these parcels is only one piece of a dangerous trend we are beginning to see across the province. In fact, as Janet mentioned, from March 2023 to March 2024, 1 year with this new weakened system for identifying provincially significant wetlands, we found that over 150 hectares of wetlands across 17 municipalities lost their provincially significant status. The largest losses from a single wetland during that time are the 55 hectares of the Goulburn Wetland Complex. Notably, the changes to the system for identifying provincially significant wetlands, called the Ontario Wetland Evaluation System, makes it so that many wetlands that would have met the threshold for provincial significance under the previous system may not qualify as significant under the new system, a fact that is acknowledged in the staff report. Therefore, the changes in status and protection for the affected areas of the Goulburn Wetland Complex does not necessarily reflect change in their value, but rather a change in the bar that must be met in order to receive provincially significant status. This is particularly problematic given how valuable wetlands are and how many have already been lost. The City of Ottawa has already lost 72% of its wetlands by 2002, now over 20 years ago. More recently, the Ontario Biodiversity Council found that from 2011 to 2015, the Kemptville Eco District, to which the City of Ottawa belongs, experienced the most extensive wetland loss of all other areas of Southern Ontario, amounting to a total of 3,913 hectares, and representing 53% of the total wetland area lost across Southern Ontario during this time. Given these significant historic and ongoing losses, all steps must be taken to protect Ottawa's precious remaining wetland systems so they may continue to provide their myriad values, including flood mitigation, carbon storage, and critical habitat for biodiversity. In terms of flood mitigation alone, research has shown Southern Ontario's natural wetlands can reduce costs associated with flood damage by 29% in rural areas, increasing to 36% in urban areas, showing the immense value these ecosystems have for municipalities as we continue to experience more extreme weather patterns. We understand that the City of Ottawa is obligated to accept the weekend wetland evaluation system. Although opportunities to refute the provincial process may be limited, we are urging municipalities to adjust their own policies and use their own powers to ensure that wetlands are protected regardless of their status as provincially significant. I hope after hearing us from today, you will take these recommendations to heart, directing staff to take the necessary actions to ensure that Ottawa's wetlands, including the 55 hectares of the Goulburn Wetland Complex, are adequately protected by city policies. And lastly, as you know, on April 26, 2023, Ottawa City Council joined many other cities around the world in moving forward to sign the Montreal Pledge on Biodiversity. The pledge commits cities to 15 concrete actions for biodiversity, including conserving existing natural environments through protection and prioritizing ecosystem approaches to mitigating climate change and protecting against extreme weather events. This is an important opportunity for the City of Ottawa to uphold this commitment. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Tony, for your advocacy, and we appreciate you being here with us this morning. I don't see any question. Thank you very much. Before we go to our next delegation, I just want to say, Councillor Gower, thank you very much for joining us. We can see you here on the screen, and good morning to you. Thanks for being join Agricultural Reform Committee this morning. Our next delegation will be Réjean Pomerleau. Mr. Pomerleau. Thank you very much for being here this morning. You got 5 minutes to address the committee.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not too used to this. I'm a contractor, so I'm Regent Pomerleau from Pomerleau Sand and Gravel. I own a piece of property on Spring Hill Road. It's 10 acres. I just want to know what my options are on that. What can I do with that? Can I do a subdivision with that? Can I do a gravel pit? Can I do a farm or hobby farm, or what can I do with it? That's my question. That's what I'd like to know. I did a subdivision in Limoges. I did 23 lots there a couple of years ago, which turned out to be a nice setup. So I want to know if it's possible to do that there also. I know I fought with the M&R for a couple of years to do some change on the lot, and I guess they approved for one lot. That's what it is there now, I think. Just want to know if there's any other options.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pomerleau, for being here. This is, if you have any concern or anything against the report, you have 5 minutes to address the committee. But for your question, I would probably ask you if you want to take this opportunity. We have so many staff here. You can take it off the air, and then maybe you can ask some question towards that. We have Mr. Adam Brown here. He's with the Rural Affairs Office from planning perspective. You can have this discussion with him right now. You have perfect opportunity. But if you don't have any other concern concerning the file, that will be your time and opportunity right now.
Okay, that's what I'd like to know, because I don't know what to do with the property right now. Thank you.
No problem. You can take this opportunity and talk to Adam offline.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pomerleau. Thank you, Réjean. Okay, now we go question to staff. I see Councillor Gower, you have some question. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've been tuned in since the start of this item, and want to thank staff and the delegations for their presentations, in particular, Janet Stavinga. I think Councillor Brown mentioned it earlier. had a number of conversations, been working very closely with Janet and the Friends of the Stittsville Wetlands, and appreciate, Janet, your advocacy and the information that you've shared with the committee in the letter prior to this meeting. It's really good information. And I wanted to hone in with staff on just one of the requests in that letter, which is around improved monitoring of wetlands in the rural area. I know staff do have a desire to improve that, to work on that, but can you give us a sense of, is it a budget issue? Is it a resource issue? What are some of the steps that would have to be taken? What resources, what support do you need from council to improve the monitoring of wetlands?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we currently have the resources necessary to monitor the extent of wetlands, the gain or loss of wetlands. That can be done through remote sensing. We currently have 2011 baseline data on the amount of wetland in the Ottawa area, and we have an update to that mapping in our work plan for 2025-2026. We had put it on pause while the conservation authorities updated their wetland mapping in anticipation we'd be able to use that, but that process has been put on hold by the province. So unless, if that does not go forward, then we will be updating our own wetland mapping and reporting on the gain or loss. In terms of wetland health and wetland functions, that's a little more tricky to do from remote sensing, and there we may run into staffing and budget implications. And we're prepared to have that discussion, as Councillor Brown has suggested.
Yeah, okay, that's good. Do you have any sense of how other municipalities are approaching this? Are we on par with other municipalities with a large rural area? Are there others that are innovating that we are looking towards for to try to replicate what they're doing? Any sense of province-wide?
We are very much unique in Ontario in terms of the size of our rural area and the amount of wetland that we do have. Also in our topography. We have seen in the Ottawa area, much of our wetland loss, I would say the vast majority, has been from conversion to agricultural lands. So almost all of Ottawa's good agricultural land is on clay soils, which historically would have been wetlands. And so we're kind of, in a sense, somewhat unique. Eastern Ontario is somewhat unique in that. Certainly food security and agricultural is also a priority for us. So it's very hard to make a comparison with other municipalities, but the approach we have taken is I would say equivalent to or ahead of most municipalities in terms of monitoring impacts and in terms of policies for protection of wetlands.
Okay, thank you. I guess the last thing is, having heard from the delegations, is there anything that you wanted to respond to or address from issues or questions that the delegations may have raised today?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no. We're anticipating the direction to meet with and respond to the letter from the Friends of the Stittsville Wetlands, and that will give us an opportunity to address those issues.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gower, and thank you very much for staff. I see no other question. I'd just like to mention also, we do have correspondence sent to us. There is a letter dated April 30th, 2024 from Ontario Nature, and letter dated September 3rd, 2024 from Friends of Stittsville Wetlands. A report recommendation 1, that the Agricultural Rural Affairs Committee recommend that Council approve the proposed amendments to the official plan as shown in document 1 and detailed in document 3. That the Agricultural Rural Affairs Committee recommend that Council approve the proposed amendments to zoning bylaw number 2008-250 as shown in document 1 and detailed in document 4 that the Agricultural Rural Affairs Committee approve the consultation details section to this report. Is that carried?
Carried.
Carried. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Tara. Thank you very much, Dr. Stowe, for being here. We have no in-camera item. There is an IPD file, Committee of Adjustment Reserve Appointments. There is no open session mic items. And notice of motion, there is none. And inquiries, also there is none. Other business, there is no other business. And we adjourn. Next meeting will be October 3rd, 2024. We adjourn at 11:35. Thank you very much all for being here. Have a great day. Meeting is adjourned.